Hello, it's Oren Prunken, and today I want to talk to you about content distribution. But first, I need to tell you a couple stories. So this happens to me all the time. I send someone a text message, so a friend or a family member, a text message, and they just don't reply. You hear nothing from them. I'm like, that's so weird. We're really, really close, but I don't hear a thing back. I wait a couple of days and then I send, copy, paste the same text message into something like Viber or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. Instantaneously, I get a reply. Now, isn't that weird and strange? And at face value, it just doesn't really make sense. So I want to tell you another story. So many years ago, I created a training program for a workplace that I was working in. I had to upskill some of the people that I was managing. Now, I created a training program that got them up to speed in all of the knowledge that they needed. Now, the thing is, they never consumed any of the training, and it baffled me why, and I just couldn't work it out. And then all of a sudden, I realized that people communicate in different ways. Now, around about the same time, most certainly at the same workplace, I did the Myers-Briggs personality test. Also did things like the DISC test, and another test that's really relevant is the 5 love languages, actually. Now, just as a side note, I don't necessarily believe all of these personality tests have a lot of weight to them. Like, humans are complex and complicated beings, and there is no way that one of these 4 or 5 acronym personality tests is going to ever sum up a human perfectly. The map is never the territory. It's just a way of pigeonholing people, and I find them very useful to pigeonhole people in terms of communication and the way that they perceive the world. So I think there is a lot of value in that. And I think probably the most valuable one was either Myers-Briggs or the 5 love languages, actually, totally unrelated to business or marketing or sales. But that really demonstrated there's really 5. There's probably more. Let's just break it down for 5 and assume that theory behind that is correct. There's 5 different ways people like to communicate. And what I realized when I was creating this training program was that I was creating the training in the way that I would like to consume it. So I just assumed everyone else perceived the world the way that I did, and also like to communicate the way that I did as well. So I created it in the format that I would love. And not everyone's like me, so no one consumed it, right? Makes a lot of sense. And the same goes with communication via messaging and messaging platforms. I'm a 90s kid. I got my mobile phone, which was one of my first ones, which was, one of the Nokias that had a snake on it. So I'm a 90s kid, and SMS is the way I like to communicate. But some of the other people that I communicate with aren't 90s kids. They are kids of where they grew up with mobile technology from like age 0, and they are all about communicating via apps. So they like to communicate one way, I like to communicate another way. And for me to get my message across, I have to really suck it up and not communicate in the way that I want to, but communicate in the way that other people want to. Many years passed since then, and I started teaching university level undergrads, first year to third years. And the other thing that I realized was down the same vein is that people like content in different ways. People like to do things, people like to hear things, people like to see things, people like to read things, people like to do all of these by themselves, people like to do all of these things in a group, so social or solo. And you can't just give one type of content to everyone. You've got to mix all of those different things together in particular ratios, so you're hitting everyone with at least one of those modalities, and hopefully you hit them with the modality that they like the best. So how does this relate all to sales and marketing? It relates to sales and marketing incredibly well, especially with content that you are distributing. So I distribute all my content across a lot of different social channels. Now, I need to put a caveat to this. So the way I consume content is I love blogs and I love podcasts. They're the mediums that I absolutely love. I also really like Facebook, and I went hard on all of those platforms, for many years very early on. But things like Instagram and Snapchat, I just thought they were actually stupid, to tell you the truth. And I was a pretty late adopter to all of those platforms. I've caught up now, but particularly things like YouTube. I had a YouTube account for years, but just never consumed anything on there. And there's a whole bunch of other social platforms that I like and don't like. And the thing is, I use the ones I like and I didn't use the ones that I didn't like. So when I go out and distribute all my content, I actually distribute it on all of the channels, right? Even though it is duplicate content, well, at least when I'm sharing content, it's not duplicate, so I'm not going to get hit with any SEO penalties for duplicate content. So that's a whole nother episode. I'm not going to go into that now, but just for the fact, just let's assume the fact that I'm not getting hit by any SEO penalties. I'm distributing all my content on a whole bunch of different channels because people are just like me. They have their favorite way of consuming content. So if I put something up on Facebook, I'm also going to put it up on YouTube, because the people that love YouTube are going to be hanging out on YouTube, and the people that love Facebook are going to be hanging out on Facebook. And surprise, surprise, the people that love both Facebook and YouTube are going to get it twice. It doesn't matter. So that's why I'm distributing content in multiple different places. Now, I did talk about SEO penalties. There is an advantage for distributing content in lots of different places. That isn't going to penalize you for SEO, but again, that is a massive topic, and I'm not going to go into it for the purposes of this episode. So when you are communicating with people, and particularly with your sales and marketing and things that you are distributing to people, you need to really think about the way that people like to communicate and the way that people will like to perceive the world, and distribute your content accordingly. Don't just distribute it to one channel, because people aren't always going to be on that channel. Just like the person I send a text message and they don't reply, they just don't use SMS, hence they don't reply, or they don't even receive it, or they don't even look at it because they hate the channel.
Thanks for listening, and if you like what was on here and want more, please go to orenprunken.com.